Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. Today with me, I have Carolyn, and Carolyn and I are going to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the whole wide world. This is one of the reasons why I'm getting my degree in fashion journalism, because fashion journalism involves the artistic eye. So, as you know, my previous company before writing books was a self-taught digital artist. Me, I was a self-taught digital artist. So, in the span of me doing my homework, I have gotten back to that, but I'm going to let Carolyn take it away and explain more of what she does, and then we're going to go in the direction of disabilities and what disabilities and art have to do with each other. So, Miss Carolyn, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Wynn. It's just such a pleasure to be with you today, and thank you so much for inviting me. I've done a lot of interviews, and, you know, a lot of times people have certain topics that they want to talk about. I love what you're doing, where you're talking to a person you find interesting and asking them about themselves. So it's really a privilege to be here and to share what I do and what my passion is with your audience. My background is as a studio artist, a production artist. I worked with ceramic jewelry, so kind of up that alley of fashion that you love. And about, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago, I started a new career. I closed my studio. I had a lot of experience in sales, and I realized that what I had to share with the world was a knowledge of how to sell my work and how to be successful being an artist. So I started a blog at my website, artsyshark.com, and I've grown it into a top 10 art blog that gets about 50,000 hits a month. I have written all types of e-courses teaching people how to be in business as an artist, and I'm also the executive director of the Arts Business Institute, and in that capacity, I travel around the country giving live workshops and teaching artists and makers how to be successful and create a sustainable small business doing what they love.
Well, as my fan base knows, I'm actually switching careers. In the next couple of years here, I'm actually going back to school for fashion journalism, and then I'm going to completely be walking away from the education field and focusing on books and artwork. You guys didn't know that, but surprise, I need to get back to my passion. Thank you very much. But I'll be focusing on books, artwork, and podcasting. So artwork will be hand-drawn stuff, sketching stuff. Artwork won't be necessarily digital manipulation anymore, but my main focus will be on the books and the podcast, but my side passion, which will make me income, originally it did, and will be artwork. So that leads me to my next question. For Carolyn, I have cerebral palsy. So you said to me before we got on this call that having a disability and doing artwork is a blessing in disguise because disabled can do what they love. So could you please explain to my audience more of what you said to me so eloquently before we got on this call?
Sure. Yeah, I think in talking about the direction of our conversation, you know, I mentioned that I've worked with so many different artists individually, and what I found is that there's very little to hold you back if you've got a passion for creating art, whether that's visual art, whether that's writing, as you do. And the reason is that, art comes in all different shapes, sizes, and mediums. And if you are doing something that you love, there's a way to get it out into the world, to get exposure, and to actually create a business doing that. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. I've worked with an artist, Shell DeStefano. She's a deaf artist. She lives in Australia. She's a wonderful painter. And because she wants to get the exposure and she's willing to do the marketing and to get online where deafness does not hold her back, she has promoted her work, sold her work, shown her work in exhibitions worldwide, and gotten quite a following. Another artist that I interviewed was Rob Florio, and he's quadriplegic. He paints with a brush in his teeth, and he does portraiture and other paintings. I did an interview with him a couple of years back, and he's actually been able to get press and television interviews and a lot of attention and promotion because of the fact that he's a quadriplegic artist, and that it's so interesting what he does, what he's able to create, and how he can become successful despite the fact that he's got a disability. And so that's why I think it doesn't have to be part of your story, but certainly if you have a disability, it's part of your life. And with the work that you're able to create, it becomes part of who you are, the passion you share with others, and the emotional response that you create in your audience that makes them want to see what you do and to own what you make.
Well, I completely agree with that. When I first came up with my original company, which, yes, my artwork is still hanging around online. Yes, you guys can go look at it. Go to imagekine.com, type in Win, W-I-N, Charles, C-H-A-R-L-S, or go to fineartamerica.com, and in fact, the original cover of my book is my artwork. So, if you guys have the copies of all copy of Odd Comma Win, that is my original artwork on that book. So, okay, Carolyn, you said you worked with a painter that is quadriplegic, and how he paints is he gets the stitches in his mouth, which I have seen, and it's very fascinating. You guys can adapt a paintbrush to anyone, and I'll just give them a laptop and they can go down on that. But how would you say it motivates the disabled to do artwork, to do something that they love? And we're not talking about physical artwork. We're talking about writing books, too, like I do, and my artwork is going to be my side passion. I've just decided that yesterday, as I'm doing homework, you guys, homework to me is very relaxing because it's drawing and it gets me out of my comfort zone.
Well, Wynn, to answer that, I think you're talking about the emotional part of creating what you love. You know, as an artist and a writer yourself, I think, and you just said it's relaxing, it's inspiring, it's motivating. You know, when you have any health issues, when you have a really busy lifestyle, or maybe you just have 4 children, whatever it is that puts a limit on the amount of time you can devote to something, creating art or writing is something that you can do in the time you're able to carve out with your schedule and your abilities. So there's no limit. I mean, there's no deadline. If you're a painter, for example, and it takes you 4 months to paint a painting, then that's the timeline you give yourself, because these are personal decisions you're able to make. And, you know, one of my students and an artist that I really admire, Corina Thurston, spoke to me in person at one of my workshops, and she's an artist who has autoimmune disease, which means she's exhausted much of the time. And she was inspired. I'm so honored that she told me this, that she was inspired by our conversation to write a book for other artists about being able to create despite the fact that you have limited energy or time. And so I think it's the motivation you have to create and allowing yourself the time to do it and not pressuring or stressing yourself. Then you can see those results. They might take a little longer, but we're not in a race here. We start where we are and we go from there. And if it takes you a little longer or it's a little harder, more time consuming, stay with it, stay motivated, complete what you can as you can, and then share that with the world.
Yeah, exactly. I am working on my next book. I have 2 books actually already done, and my goal is to complete 13 books this year. 13, all separate books. Not one, but
wow.
13 books this year. And yes, and I'm going to do it. And I just secured a publishing deal yesterday. It's a small publishing deal, but it's a publishing deal. So I'm handing my artwork, in a sense, over to the publisher in March, and hopefully they take good care of my artwork, because, as Carolyn knows, when you sell a piece of artwork, whether it be a book or a little piece of artwork, you're handing over your child.
Yeah, one thing that I always tell artists of all types is, when someone buys or collects your art, it's not just a purchase of a thing. They're buying your talent, your creative spirit, your inspiration. That's why art is more than just a thing. It's not something that's stamped out by a factory. It's something that has your heart and soul inside of it. It's something that has your story embedded in it. And that makes it very special. I think that artists, need to understand that most people don't buy original art. Most people, if they want to hang something on the wall, they might go to the mall, they might find something at Target, and that's perfectly fine. But the people who truly appreciate what you as an artist make and the creative spirit that you share, those collectors have a great love of art and maybe very creative people themselves. So I think that we find, in the art community and with our collectors, we find very friendly and generous group of other people who appreciate what we do and we appreciate them. One of the suggestions that I make to artists all the time, and I think this absolutely relates to your audience, Wynn, is to find a community of artists to belong to. And the thing is, if you're disabled and you're not really able to get out and attend a meeting in person, like, the local arts council or an art salon, there are so many online communities, and they give you support, feedback, give you resources, ideas, share opportunities. And that's the kind of thing that the community it does to support the artists who might be working in isolation, especially because they have a disability.
And so now, do you consider writer artist as well, or do you just consider artists selling physical pieces of artwork, artists?
That's a great question. I don't consider visual artists to be the only artists out there. Absolutely, writers fall into that category. In fact, I've written so much myself. I usually write nonfiction business articles, but many of the people that I work with are also writers. In fact, I just interviewed an artist the other day who not only creates physical visual art, but she writes about art and she expresses herself creatively, and she's selling her books and her artwork side by side. They complement each other, which I think is very much the case in what you're doing.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm still keeping my artwork up and alive, because I want to not only sell visual artwork, but my books as well. And so when you say you interview people, what methodology do you use?
Well, I have a formula that I use that works really well. And the reason that I use this is because I interview artists all the time. I've got 2 websites. One of them is artsyshark.com, and the other website is artsbusinessinstitute.org. That's a nonprofit that I run. And on the Arts Business Institute site, every Friday, we interview an invited artist. And it's a written interview. So it's not a podcast like what we're doing right now. It's an interview where I am calling the artist on the phone. We're talking about their background, talking about the images of their work that they're going to send me. And we develop questions that lead into helping them tell their story. Because these profile articles are a way of sharing their portfolio, sharing that all-important story about themselves and their art, and giving them that kind of exposure to the world. So the way that I interview them is I develop questions on the phone with them, email those questions to the artist so that they can consider the question, think it over, and write the answers the way that they'd like them to be read. That gives them, a little extra time rather than coming up with an answer on the spot. And I found that type of interview is very comfortable for most people, especially those who, might need a little extra time in thinking about, how exactly would I answer this question to describe my work? And so that's usually the system that I use in interviewing.
And that's a fascinating system, by the way. So you do a blog-style interview.
Exactly. We do a Q&A. And here's what I found. I don't know what your response to this would be, Wynn, but as far as an interview, I generally keep it to about 500 words. And I like that number because it's long enough to draw in images of the artwork, within the paragraphs of the interview, but it's short enough that, all those readers out there with limited attention spans aren't going to get bored and click away. So hopefully that's the right size. And I'm wondering, is that how you choose the timing for your podcasts, that you've kind of found that sweet spot?
I typically do 20 to 30 minutes because the majority of podcasts are listened to at the gym or in a vehicle. Trust me, all these vehicles have technology now that you can play a podcast in your car. So typically people listen to my podcast at the gym or multitasking. So that's why I typically do 20 to 30 minutes at the maximum 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really smart idea because you found out what your listeners need and you're able to provide that, so that it fits within their, ability to listen. Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
So where can people find you and where can people get a hold of your book / your work/your work with the disabled?
You certainly can check out my website, and that's www.artsyshark.com. And that website is filled with hundreds of business articles, artist features, and that's where people can get in touch with me if they would be interested in either working with me individually or looking at the courses that we offer. And the other website that I manage is www.arts, that's A-R-T-S, businessinstitute.org, and that's the nonprofit organization. It's we produce professional development workshops for artists and makers.
Okay. And we'll have all that information in the show notes to you guys. So if you're driving and listening to this on the Thursday morning, you can get Carolyn's information and some show notes and contact her from there. But before I let Carolyn go, I want her to ask me a couple questions that she's been interested in asking me about anything.
You know, Wynn, I do have a question because I want to recognize you and I applaud you for creating such a widely listened to program and these podcasts. You've clearly built a business doing what you love. And, you know, I think you'll agree with me that as you build a business, you kind of reach that tipping point where things just start rolling. Things come to you all the time. You're interacting with other peers in the space where you are, and you become a very well-known person. And I just, you know, I'm interested in finding out what inspired you and what motivated you to stick with this type of a program to serve your audience that you've done so well.
Oh, well, I wrote a book when I was 23 years old about my life. That was my first autobiography. I'm now working on my third autobiography, and this podcast spun off that book. And when that book first got published, it hit #1, and complete strangers were buying it. I tried for many months to blog, and that didn't work out for me because I can't type. I am audio retention snob, and my learning style is audio, big time. And I can read on the computer. That's not the problem. The problem for me is typing and holding physical books. So this is why I developed this podcast to inspire the disabled, not only inspire the disabled, but inspire solo entrepreneurs that if they have a dream that they can achieve it.
Yeah, I think you've absolutely done that, and I just find what you're doing inspiring. Have you heard from your listeners and your fans the ways that you've inspired or affected them in to do something positive? Have you heard that feedback?
I know this podcast has saved people's lives. I know that. For a matter of fact, I got a fan to tell me this, doing an interview with me saved their life, and she was a artist who was living in a nursing home with a chronic disease, and that was the original interview that saved her life. I don't know if she's doing work anymore, but I pretty much talk to my fans on a daily basis, either through text or Facebook, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I actually go on Facebook and do Facebook Live so my fans can actually see me in the conjunction with the podcast. And because of my podcast, that's how my book deal came about. And we're looking slowly but surely to get $2,000 for this book deal to hand over to the publisher. And the reason why I mentioned 2,000 is because that's how much the publisher wants. But this publisher is based in Houston, and this particular publisher, Paper Ravens Plus, who I'm using as of March, her house is flooded. Thank you very much to Hurricane Harvey. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm using this publisher, because she's right now. I talked to her yesterday, and I point blank asked her. I said, "You're in Houston. Were you affected by Hurricane Harvey?" And I'm going to share a story next week on this podcast. As a matter of fact, I shared it on Facebook Live and yesterday, and the meaning behind my publisher. And so I think my next book with this publisher is going to impact more than me, and also I hope. And I'm also helping one family in Houston rebuild. Thank you very much, because of Hurricane Harvey. So if you guys want to donate, you're more than welcome to it, to the book project. Donate via PayPal. All that information will be in the show notes. My email address is aspenrose@gmail.com. That is hooked up to a PayPal account. Again, it's Aspen, ASPN, Rose, OSE, or ALTS@gmail.com, and that is hooked up to a PayPal account. Or you can just contact me and I'll give you the information. You guys can tweet me at Win Kelly Charles, Win, W-I-N, Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y, Charles, C-H-A-R-L-E-S, and I'll give you the information. So I think that we're all helping Hurricane Harvey victims in the best way we can, and the fact that I'm getting the book out of this is a win-win situation. I don't know about Carolyn, how she feels about Hurricane Harvey victims and artwork, but before I let her go, I'm going to ask her that question. How do you feel about Hurricane Harvey victims and artwork? Do you think that people should be donating
I do. Yes.
Artwork to Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, I had just participated in an auction and purchased a piece of art in an auction to support Hurricane Harvey when I myself was evacuated for Hurricane Irma, because I live in South Florida. So, you know, they were combined. But I totally agree with you. Artists don't necessarily have to donate artwork to support Harvey, you know, people who are victims of Harvey. They can donate money. And one of the things that the Arts Business Institute is doing to support Houston artists who've been impacted by the hurricane is that we're having a workshop coming up October 21st and 22nd in Austin, Texas, and we have 2 scholarships, courtesy of a donation, a very kind, generous donation by artist.com. And right now we are accepting applications from Houston area artists who can demonstrate need and would benefit from coming to a professional development workshop free of charge that's being sponsored for them to come in October to our event. It's an Arts Business Summit in Austin. So, yeah, we're sponsoring several artists to come to that, and hopefully, we'll get a good selection of artists and be able to help some people out.
Well, maybe this podcast interview can stir some people up to either donate to Hurricane Harvey or Hurricane Irma or apply to your artist summit themselves if they were impacted by Hurricane Harvey. And so if you guys want to help Carolyn and I out, please help us out in the ways that you see fit. Either check out Carolyn's artwork or buy my books, and we'll ever be so grateful if you help I won't call it starving artists because it's bad terminology, help the artists out continue to do what they love. And that's why I brought Carolyn on this morning to explain to us how we can do what we love and make a living off of it.
Thank you, Wen. Yeah, it's just been a privilege speaking with you today, and I think what you're doing is incredible. If anyone would like to find out more about this opportunity for Houston artists, I'd suggest go to the Facebook page, Arts Business Institute, and you'll be able to learn more about it.
Well, thank you. So again, that's Facebook, Art Business Institute, and then we will we'll have all that information in the show notes for you guys. And I appreciate you guys so much, and I appreciate you following me on two journeys, one with my books, I should say, and then the other one with my fashion journalism degree, and I'll keep you guys updated. And this podcast has been sponsored by Grace by Grit. Grace by Grit is a clothing line out of California, and they're giving you 20% off when you punch in the code EXO Butterflies at gracebygrit.com. And so I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed another insightful interview with Carolyn and I. Thanks to you guys.
Thank you, Ann. Wen, are you still there?